Hi, so in today's video we're going to be having a look at this, which is a JVC music system, and it's Bluetooth DAB CD. It's got a USB input, but the interesting thing about it is it's actually a valve amplifier. So it's actually a mixture of old and new technology pretty much. Now I purchased this off eBay for spares or repair. I paid £30 for it, including the postage, and the fault is it switches on, but then none of the controls actually do anything. You can't change the source, it won't eject. So what we'll do, we'll plug it in, we'll just double check that's what it's doing, and then we'll take it apart and see if we can repair it. Right, I shall just grab a mains lead. Right, I'm back with some power, so we'll plug it in. And it's flashing away on the front just here. You can see the clock symbol there. And we've got a red power light. We'll just switch it on. And it says hello. Hello. And now it's preheating the valves, which are just here. Right, so it's set to DAB mode, and we should be to change the source here with this rotary encoder. And nothing's happening. You can see the little glow there, but nothing's happening. The bass and the volume controls are rotary encoders as well, so they just turn and turn and turn, and nothing happens. The only control that seems to do anything is the standby button here, which when you press that, it says bye bye, and then that's about it. So that's the fault. So let's take it apart and see if we can figure it out. So it looks like there's a couple of screws on that side, a couple of screws on that side, and about 4 screws on the back. So we'll unplug it first. Right, so what do we have then? Well, it's fairly compact in here. I can see a large transformer in the bottom. I guess that's where the 2 valves are, just in the front here. So I guess that part is the valve amplifier in the very front of the unit. It looks like, I'll just zoom down a little bit there. Looks like we've got a Bluetooth module just here. I guess that's the main CD controller board at the back, because that's where the optical drive head and that goes to. This looks like the main control board over this section, I would say, by the amount of wires and that's got going into it. And it looks like we've got a front panel display just down here. And it's nice that it's a VFD. So I guess this is part of the tube amplifier there as well. I can see some voltages written down there, and there's a couple of fairly large capacitors as well. Right, so how are we going to tackle this one then? I wonder if I can get this CD drive out of the way, just so we can see a bit further down into the guts of the thing. Looks like we've got a little switch mode power supply down here, and a relay, I think that might be. So that could be the standby. Yeah, that would probably go to the front panel, these wires here. So that might go to the switch, I would guess, which is just here. Yeah, so this little circuit board here powers the standby, and when you press that, it probably switches that relay on, I would think. That probably makes sense. And powers up the main transformer, which then powers up everything else. Well, I'm trying to think where to start with this one. I don't know if the fault is going to be on the front panel, because whether it's had a knock and cracked one of the tracks, or it's a dry joint or something on the front panel and that's why it's not working, or if it's something further in. I can see some stuff written on this board here. Let's just have a little look on here, see what we can see. Now I'll just zoom down a fraction more. And some voltages written down there. AC 28 volts and minus 28 volts. 14 plus AC there. AC 14 volts, I think that says, yeah. And AC 14 volts minus. Now hold on, what we've got here? Treble, bass, funk, I think that's it, for function. Rot A and rot B. So I think those I'll probably go to the front panel. So I wonder if we're getting any signals on those when we turn the dials at the front. I think what I'll do, I'm going to hook the scope up and we'll just probe these connections here and we'll see if we get any signals on them. Right, so I've got the scope set up there and we're on 1 volt per division. Set that on the centre line there. So let's see if we get anything on this function pin, which I would think is going to be the one at the front here. So let's turn that. And there is a little bit of movement on the scope trace there. Yeah, every time I click it we're getting a slight, I mean that must be like 0.1 of a volt or something. I mean it's next to nothing. 0.2 of a volt maybe. Let's just try the treble one. And again we're getting a very, it's hardly anything there. Try the bass. Yeah, so there's a little bit of movement on the bass one there as I'm turning it. You can see the scope trace move. And I don't know what, that must be the volume. One of what's on these ones. Yeah, so I guess that's the volume. I'll try this rot B one. Yeah, so these two end ones appear to be the volume, I think. Yeah, because when I'm turning the other knobs now, nothing's happening, just the volume knob. Right. There's a little bit on that one, but I mean, again, maybe half of a volt. That seems awfully low. Now we'll just, I think I'll get the meter out and we'll check some voltage and things on here. I wonder if there's not, I wonder if there's no voltage getting to the front panel on these controls maybe, because they do seem to be switching back to here. But I would expect, you know, a 5 volt signal or something, not 0.2 of a volt. Let's zoom out a bit. I'll see if I can get the meter in shot. The only problem is I can't really see these contacts very well because they're quite small. So I'll have to rearrange a few bits and bobs here. See if I can get the meter in shot. Right, I'm going to have to use a magnifying glass to actually see what's on these. So the first pin over here is marked 3.3 volts, so let's see what we'll get on that. .2. I'll just double check that. That was 3.3, wasn't it? It says analog 3.3 because it says A 3.3, but that doesn't seem right. I can see V5 volts, which is about first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins along this connection. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've only got 0.9. So we seem to have some power supplies missing from here. Because we should have a 5 volt on there. And on that one, it should be 3.3 volts. Either that or I haven't got the proper ground on here. Let's just double check. Right, there's a ground on the left here and 5 volts. Let's see if we've got anything on them ones. Again, 0.9. Right. So we have a power supply issue then. So where is the power supply? Just unplug it. Well, that was a bit strange. I just suddenly lost video output on my camera for some reason. It seemed to coincide when I unplugged the power from the stereo. Right, so how do I get into this? It looks like we've got some power cables coming from the transformer that go into this board here. So I think this may be partly to do with the power supply, because there is a couple of heat sinks down there as well. So let's see if we can get this board out somehow. Let's start by unplugging some of these connectors, maybe to see a bit better. These red ones are a bit hard to get out. Right, that's starting to come away from the board. Let's get this little bracket out of the way. And it looks like there's about 4 screws on the back, possibly holding it in as well. 3 screws, I think. One of them's the plastic support here. And it looks like we've got another screw down the bottom here. Well, we've got a bit of movement on it, but it still doesn't seem like it wants to come out. Right, let's switch the scope off for a second. Oh, capacitors have got charging. That was a bit of a exciting one. Right, well, why won't you come out then? Oh, I've still got charge in those capacitors. Right, this is a bit awkward to get into. I wonder if it's better as taking the back of the unit off completely, and then I can slide it out the back. Looks like somebody's put an extra couple of washers on there. I guess that's for an earth point for the DAB antenna. Probably haven't had the right connector. I've just poked a wire in. There's the remains of the earth wire. I'm trying to keep track of where all these screws go. Let's get this back out the way. I've got a load more connectors down here as well. Well, that one doesn't want to come out. I wasn't sure if it was glued in or something at first. Right. We've got two fuses down there. Right, I'll move this bit out of the way and we'll have a quick look over this bit of board. And we'll zoom down a bit. Right, I've just spotted something down there. Looks like something's exploded. Right, I think I'll bring the microscope in and we'll have a look over this area. Right, one moment please. Right, I've got the microscope hooked up there, and I've had to put some black tape over the capacitors here because the glare, because with them being shiny on the top, was reflecting the light back into the microscope. Right, so it looks like we've got a couple of components burned out down there. I wonder if I get some IP on there and a cotton bud and maybe clean that area up. Right, well, whatever component that was, it's just broke off the board. Right, let's put that to one side and see if we can make any sense of it. Let's see if we can get a number off this chip. Let's have to refocus this slightly. It looks like AP 6502. I wonder if I can scrape away any of this here. It even looks perhaps corroded, this, I don't know. Let's see if I can get a toothbrush in there. It's just a bit awkward to get in with the capacitors and everything being all around it. Looks like a capacitor maybe, because it is marked C12. Let's took a nice chunk out of the board there. Let's spin this round a sec so I've got a bit better view of it. So it looks like this could be the 5-volt regulator, and then following on from that we've got this 3.31. So if there's no 5 volts, there's going to be no 3.3, which is kind of what we discovered. Right, I'm going to see if I can find a data sheet for this IC, and then we'll see if we can clean up this area a bit more. I've got a set of these wire brushes that somebody recommended, so I might see if we can clean up some of this carbonisation on this PCB. So I pulled up the data sheet for this chip, and this pin here, pin 2, is actually the power input. And I've removed this capacitor here because I wasn't sure if it had leaked, because there was a little bit of corrosion. You can see it on these wires here and a little bit on this capacitor. and a little bit on that capacitor, so I wasn't sure whether some liquid was spilled in it or something like that. So I removed that capacitor just to see if the capacitor had leaked, but it actually seems okay. So what happens is the power seems to come in here. It goes through this fuse, which I've checked, which is marked F3. We've got a bridge rectifier here, which seems to measure okay. It comes into this capacitor and then into this buck chip, which then reduces the voltage down to 5 volts through this inductor. Now, as long as this chip gets power, which I've traced it back to that pin there, and it matches on the data sheet, we've just got a capacitor from here to here. This is the output that goes to the inductor, by the way, pin 3. Pin 4 is ground, and there's just a capacitor that goes between pin 1 and 3, which is there. This is just a filter capacitor that just to stop spikes on the power input, so I'm not really worried about that. That wouldn't actually cause it not to work, even though that's missing. And the only other thing is the enable pin, which comes from here, which is pin 7. It goes along here through a 4.7K resistor down this track, and then ends up on this pin on this connector here, and that goes to the little switch mode power supply where the mains comes in. So when that switches on, it sends a little signal to this pin here, which then activates this chip, which, as long as it's got power and it's working correctly, should start giving me 5 volts. So I think either this chip has failed. That wouldn't explain why this capacitor's gone. I think that's just random. I can't see any reason why that would fail. Or it's not getting the enable signal. So we need to check the power, that we're getting the enable signal, and then apart from that, the chip must have failed. But it's going to be a little bit hard to test this while it's all plugged in, so I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet. But I have got a feeling that it's this chip that's at fault. Right, I'll see if I can figure out how to connect this up so we can measure some voltages maybe. Right, I managed to get it hooked up a bit so we can plug it in, and hopefully we should get power to the parts that we need. So if I go on here, which is ground, and then if I just probe here where the other side of that capacitor was, we're getting 15 volts, and if I just go on to pin 2, yeah, we're getting 15 volts into there. So that IC is getting power. The next pin that we need to check is the enable pin, which is this pin here, and logic level high, so it's got 3.1 volts there, so that should be enable. So that chip is getting power and it should be enabled. Let's see if we get anything on the output. So if I just go onto the inductor here, and we're getting 0.98 of a volt. So I think that chip's failed. One thing we can check is just to see if there's any short on the output of the chip. Or should I see where the voltage is going? So if I measure resistance between ground and if we go on the output again, I don't appear to have a short on the output. So I think that chip Right, I'll see if I can order one of those and then we'll see about replacing it. Right, so the new parts have arrived, so let's get fitting them. So I'm going to have to heat this board from the bottom because of all the capacitors and the plastic connectors that are around here. If I heat from the top, it's either going to melt the connectors or explode the capacitors. So in this part of the video, I'm just adding some flux to the chip, and then I'm adding some low melt solder just to try and help remove it a bit more easily. And then I'm going to heat the board from the bottom of the board here with the Rework station. You can see the solder melting there, and in reality it took about 6 minutes to get this chip off. There we go. Now to refit the new chip, so I'll just get it in place there, and then heat the board again from the bottom, and you should just see it slowly just melt into place. And there we go. Right, so there's the old chip there, and you can see the thermal pad on the bottom of it that I was talking about, and that's the new chip fitted. I did try briefly heating it from the top just to see if it would help remove it, and I did start melting the connector there, so I stopped doing that. You can see it was taking ages to heat it from the bottom. It took about 6 minutes worth of heat on the bottom of the board to get this to come off. So right, let's see if we can fit it back into the stereo and see if it works. I think what I might do is just do what I did before and just have it half hanging out the stereo, just to see if we get voltage on that voltage regulator. So I've been messing about with this for the last few hours now and I haven't been getting very far. I've tried changing the inductor, I've changed capacitors, I checked all the wiring, all the continuity, I've checked the schematic of how one of these regulators is wired up, and it still wasn't working. I was still only getting 0.8 of a volt. So I thought, right, one last thing, then I've got a spare chip, I'll try a spare chip, and that's after I've changed the inductor as well. I even tried changing that, still wasn't working. I thought, right, I've checked everything seems fine, I'll try changing the chip again. So look at the meter now, I've got 4.7 volts there now. Before we were only getting about 0.8, and on this 3 volt regulator now we have 3.3. so I don't know whether too much heat had damaged the previous chip, whether it was the inductor or whether it was a couple of the capacitors changed or what, but the chip I replaced it with wasn't working, and now I've just replaced the chip again and now it is working. So bit of a head scratcher, so I don't know, but at least it's working now, so let's hopefully see if we can get it back together now then. So I thought before we put it back together we'd see if we could get a glimpse of these valves down there. And there they are, there and there. So this must be the valve amplifier down here, so I just thought we'd have a quick look at that just while we're in here. You can see the control panel front display and control board there a bit easier now, and you can see the mains transformer in the bottom and the little switch mode power supply down there that activates everything. Right, I'll put this back together now then. Right, now hopefully no. Nah. Right, I guess I need to pull it apart again then. Right, so it seems that our 5 volts has dropped to 1.2 for some reason. So is there something else that we've connected causing a short now, or has that regulator failed again? I think that's what we need to find out. That's a bit of a pain, isn't it? Right, progressed at last. 5 volts. So that little capacitor that was blown, I've replaced that as well, and what I think was happening was sometimes when you applied power to the unit, that buck converter IC must have been crashing and wasn't booting up properly or something. That's the only thing I can think, because I've replaced that capacitor now and it seems a lot more reliable, and we've got 5 volts now with everything connected. So perhaps I was wrong about that capacitor, but there's still more issues. I'll show you what's going on now. So if I just raise this up here and switch it on. There we go, hello. I'll just wait for it to preheat. I can actually change source in that now. But the CD isn't opening and closing. The volume's working as well, and the treble, but it just continuously shows open. So I think there's a problem with the CD side of it as well. Nothing's ever straightforward, is it? Right. So I'm going to take the CD deck out. And the eject motor, I'll just flip this over here, is this one here. This is for the sled that moves the head backwards and forwards. And this one is for the eject, which turns that cog there. But it isn't doing that. So, are we getting power to the motor? I think I'm going to unplug this ribbon cable. So are we getting power to the motor, or are we not? Right, let's plug this back in, and I'll have to give it a second to do its thing. Right, it's booted up now. Let's see if we're getting any power to this motor. And we've got 5 volts there. So has this motor failed? Now that's interesting. I wonder if the cause of the regulator has been a fault with the CD trying to continuously go in or something, and that's what's caused the regulator to fail. That could be a possibility, couldn't it? So we need to find out how this motor is controlled, and then it looks like it's going to need a replacement motor and whatever controls it. Right, I'm going to unplug this. And it looks like the tray and eject motor is back on this board again. I thought we'd finish with this board, but I guess not. Actually, I can see some transistors just this side of it. Right, looks like I might have to pull this board out yet again then. So this is the connector where the CD tray motor connects to, and it's driven by these 4 transistors here in a kind of H-bridge type of arrangement. And I've just noticed this resistor here. I don't know if that's a bit corrosion on the end of it there. Let's just have a little bit poke at that. definitely some kind of corrosion, that. Let's get a little bit of IP on there, we'll give it a bit clean. I'll try to anyway. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. Have we got any more signs of corrosion or anything around here? Yeah, I think it's this glue stuff they've used that seems to have reacted with the solder and that stuff, because look, it's the same sort of thing here as well. It's like it's reacted with the solder over time. Right, I'm going to see if I can find a CD drive motor somewhere. Right, so I found a motor off an old CD-ROM drive. So hopefully we can replace this motor with that one. Right, so swap the cog over. I don't know how easy the cog will be to come off. Fairly easy. Right, so I'll snip the wires off this motor and just solder them onto there. And just to show you that this motor is indeed open circuit, I'll just touch my probes together there. If I go on here and here, nothing. Tin these wires up and then we'll solder them on. Just got the excess off that one. Right, that's another little job out the way. Right, let's just check the resistance of this motor. Yeah, there we go. Right, let's start putting it back together yet again then. Right, so I've partially assembled it and I've just powered it on. So let's see if it ejects now. Yes. Does it go back in? Brilliant. Right, let's see if it does anything with the CD now. Oh, that looks promising. Reading, it says on the front. You can't see it, but I can. Yes, it's playing. Right, we need to test to see if we've got any audio output on the thing now. Right, I'll have to grab some speakers from somewhere, I think. Back in a mo. Right, I thought I'd save you the trauma of reassembly again. So I've connected it all up and connected it to some speakers, so let's give it a whirl. And it ejects nicely now. I'll put a disc in. Now I'm only play a couple of seconds of this because otherwise I'll get a copyright strike for music. So there you go, you can hear it there playing away. I've just paused it. Right, so that's the CD playing okay. If we change the source to USB, I've already prepared some copyright music here, so or copyright free music rather. There you go, playing from that speaker and from that one. So the bass and treble working. To the next source, Bluetooth. So I'll just connect my phone up to it. And I'll just find some copyright music quickly there. Right, there we go. Playing from Bluetooth. I'll just stop that. Try to stop it, there we go. Now aux, I haven't got anything plugged in, so I can't show you that one. I don't know what audio in is. Ah, at the front there, I just noticed that one. DAB, we don't get any DAB reception round here unfortunately. And on tune I will just get white noise because I don't have an aerial plugged in, and the reception unfortunately isn't very good around here because we actually live in a valley. So, but yeah, it's I'm quite pleased with this one. I was struggling a bit with it at first, but we got through it and we got it working. So right then, if you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, please subscribe. Any comments or questions, please leave it in the comment section below. And as always, have a great day. Thanks for watching.